welcome back to 5 for 5. Now, somebody once said that fiction reveals a truth that reality obscures, and we're going to do a little bit of revealing of reality by giving you the top 5 fiction novels of 2008. We're going to start off with a book called 2666, written by a Chilean author called Roberto Bolano. Now, this book was initially written in Spanish and released in 2004, but in 2008 we got an English translation, and it is quite a detective novel.
This is the last novel by Chilean-born novelist Roberto Bolano. First published in Spanish in 2004, this piece is a detective novel with strong hints of apocalyptic foreboding. There is no reference to the title figure in its 900 pages. In 2007, the novel was adapted into a stage play in Bolano's hometown.
The fate of a slave child abandoned by her mother animates this elusive novel about orphaned women in late 17th century America. The book is called A Mercy and is by Toni Morrison.
Toni Morrison's new novel, A Mercy, examines slavery in its early days in America and bears witness to the genesis of a powerful institution of both physical and psychological oppression. This is Morrison's 9th book, a work of poetry and intelligence and a continuation of her noble and necessary fictional project of exposing the infamies of slavery and the hardships of being African American.
This book has been called a post-9/11 masterpiece. It's called Netherland, written by Joseph O'Neill, and it is his ode to the city of New York.
Senior editor of New York Times Book Review Dwight Garner called Netherland the wittiest, angriest, most exacting and most desolate work of fiction we've yet had about life in New York and London after the World Trade Center fell. This book is O'Neill's ode to New York, and it's narrated by a Dutch financier whose privileged Manhattan existence is upended by the events of September 11th, 2001.
In an increasingly globalized world, more and more people choose to uproot themselves and their family and move to a new country. That, of course, brings with it its own set of problems. Jhumpa Lahiri's book, Unaccustomed Earth, deals precisely with the trials and tribulations that first and second generation immigrants face.
Unaccustomed Earth is the latest book from Pulitzer Prize-winning author Jhumpa Lahiri. After Interpreter of Maladies, this is her second collection of short stories. Just like her other books, Unaccustomed Earth is also a reflection of life of two separate cultures and how people cope with each other. It made the New York Times Book Review list of 10 best books of 2008.
Next on our list, we have something by author Stephen Millhauser. Now, this book called Dangerous Laughter is actually a collection of 13 stories and is definitely something we recommend you take a look at.
This is the first collection in 5 years for Pulitzer Prize-winning author Stephen Millhauser. Until the Pulitzer, Millhauser was best known for his 1972 debut, Edwin Mulhouse. His short story, Eisenheim the Illusionist, was adapted for the 2006 film The Illusionist, starring Edward Norton.
As far as I'm concerned, science fiction is the most underrated genre in literature nowadays. And that's because most people think that it's all about technology and aliens and woo, but that's simply not the case. We're going to be ranking for you the top 5 greatest science fiction novels of all time, based on a statistical survey of the awards that they won and general acclaim. In 1949, the world had just been through the misery of 2 massive world wars, and visions of the future were quite bleak. George Orwell was no exception as he penned down the words for his greatest novel, 1984.
Considered perhaps the 20th century's best chronicler of English culture, this story follows the life of one seemingly insignificant man, Winston Smith, a civil servant assigned the task of perpetuating the regime's propaganda by falsifying records and political literature. 1984 has been twice adapted to the cinema and radio, 3 times for television and once to the stage.
They say the line between lunacy and genius is extremely thin, and in no other science fiction book is that fact more clear than in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the first of 6 books in the comedy science fiction series by Douglas Adams. The characters visit the legendary planet Magrathea and find the question to the ultimate answer. The book reached #1 on the charts in only its 2nd week and sold over 250,000 copies within 3 months of its release. The film adaptation was released in 2005 and enjoyed modest success at the box office.
Isaac Asimov is probably one of the most famous science fiction writers of all time, and you might also have seen some of the movies that are based on his books like I, Robot and Bicentennial Man. However, his greatest achievement is considered to be the Foundation series, and this comes in at number 3 on our list.
By the 1980s, the Foundation trilogy series was considered the most important work of modern science fiction. The plot focuses on the growth and reach of the Foundation against a backdrop of the decline and fall of the Galactic Empire. In 1965, the Foundation received a special Hugo Award for Best All-Time Series.
Frank Herbert's Dune is considered to be one of the greatest works of science fiction of all time, but in my opinion, it is much more than that. Because this book deals with complex themes like sociology, religion, politics, spirituality, and ecology. And it's set in a future far out in the distance, in a time where mankind has rejected the thinking machines.
Dune was the winner of the 1966 Hugo Award and the inaugural Nebula Award for Best Novel. It's frequently cited as the best-selling science fiction novel in history. Dune tells the story of young Paul as he and his family accept control of the desert planet Arrakis. Dune has been widely influential, inspiring other novels, music, films, including Star Wars, television, video games, and comic books.
Here at the top of our list, I have to admit we have a book that I have never read. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, and I can tell you that it is next on my to-read list.
The first in the series, this novel won the Nebula Award for Best Novel in 1985 and the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1986. Ender's Game has been translated into 27 different languages. In the book, humankind experiences large-scale confrontations with a largely unknown alien race called Formics, who nearly wipe out humanity.
Now we just got to run off for a little break, but don't you go anywhere, because on the flip side, we have something from the granddaddy of English literature, Shakespeare. Stay tuned.